Welcome to IAS project. In this video, we will talk about how Chalcolithic age in India changed into Bronze Age. Before we go into the lecture, let me ask you an easy question. Which of the below Chalcolithic sites is considered as the largest site of Jorwe culture? You have four options here: Nevasa, Daimabad, Chandoli and Jorwe. If you know the answer to this question, please comment in the comment section. So let's talk about how Chalcolithic age in India changed into Bronze Age. This is basically a transition or a transformation of Chalcolithic age into Bronze Age. We know that in northwestern India as well as in northern India, there were many Chalcolithic cultures. For example, we have Dam Sadat culture over here, Amri Nal culture over here, Kot Diji culture, Hakraware sites and Soti Siswal culture over here. We have already discussed all these cultures in pre-Harappan cultures. So what happened was, initially the people in these Chalcolithic cultures were living in hill slopes as well as in the river valleys. But what they did was, they eventually moved to floodplains. Since these people were close to Indus and its tributaries, these people simply moved into the floodplains of Indus and its tributaries. So this is the first major step when people came down from hill slopes and river valleys and went into the river plains, or let's say the flood plains of Indus and its tributaries. In the flood plains of Indus, these people learnt how to use bronze. So with this, what happened was, the Chalcolithic age changed into Bronze Age. So in the Bronze Age, these people built very large cities. For example, they built Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Rakhigadi and other major cities which we have already discussed in Indus civilization videos. So with these two steps, what happened was, now the Harappan Bronze Age urban culture has started. At the same time, we must note that all these Chalcolithic cultures did not change into Harappan Bronze Age culture. There were some Chalcolithic cultures which did not adopt the Harappan Bronze Age technology. For example, we have Kulli culture over here. And we also talked about Ganeshwar Jodhpura culture, which was over here. The people of Kulli culture as well as Ganeshwar Jodhpura culture did not adopt the Harappan Bronze Age technology or the lifestyle of Harappans. So please remember this point. All Chalcolithic cultures near the Indus region did not change into Bronze Age civilization. They remained as Chalcolithic cultures. But most of the other Chalcolithic cultures changed into Bronze Age. So this is how Chalcolithic age changed into Bronze Age in the case of India. This transition first happened in the northwestern part as well as northern part of the subcontinent. We already know how Harappan phase ended. We have also elaborately discussed some of the possible reasons for the end of Harappan bronze culture. We have also said that all Chalcolithic cultures did not become Bronze Age cultures. So they remained Chalcolithic cultures. So initially there were Chalcolithic cultures. Some of these Chalcolithic cultures changed into Harappan bronze culture. And when mature Harappan bronze culture ended, late Harappan culture began, which was again a Chalcolithic culture. At the same time, some Chalcolithic cultures did not adopt Harappan bronze culture. Instead, they remained as Chalcolithic cultures. So we started with Chalcolithic culture and we also ended with Chalcolithic culture once again. Now let's talk about how these Chalcolithic cultures also ended. First, let us focus on Central India and Western India. In Central India and in Western India, Chalcolithic cultures practically disappeared by 1200 BC, except for Jorwe culture. Jorwe culture lasted up to 700 BCE. The reason for disappearance of Chalcolithic cultures in Central India and Western India was probably the aridity. Aridity means low rainfall conditions. We already discussed in our previous videos that climate change was happening around 1500 BCE. So by 1200 BCE, because of this climate change, people started to abandon their Chalcolithic lifestyle. Moreover, we must also note that in Central India and in Western India, we mainly have black cotton soil. Without rainfall, black cotton soil is not good for agriculture, because what happens is, when there is rainfall, black cotton soil absorbs that water. But when there is no rainfall, black cotton soil becomes very hard and it is not suitable for agriculture without proper irrigation and without iron plowshare. So when rainfall declined, black cotton soil was not useful for agriculture anymore. That is why most of the Chalcolithic cultures in central India and western India declined by the time of 1200 BCE because of low rainfall conditions. At the same time, we must also note that Chalcolithic pottery continued to be made. For example, Chalcolithic red and black pottery continued to be made even till the times of 2nd century BCE, that is around 200 BCE. So although the Chalcolithic cultures in central India and western India disappeared practically, their pottery still continued to be existing. Please note that here I have used the word historical times. What do we mean by historical times? Historical times simply means that written evidences are available from this period. And prehistoric times simply means that written records are not available. So please make this distinction between prehistoric times and historical times. Chalcolithic culture mainly falls under prehistoric times, but 2nd century BCE falls under historic times. So once the Chalcolithic cultures of central India and western India declined, we do not know what happened immediately after this. We only know about the rise of historic cultures around 6th century BCE. So we can say that other than the region of Jorve culture, we do not know much about central India as well as western India if we talk about the times between 1200 BCE and 600 BCE. Because during 6th century BCE, one important historical development took place. That was nothing but the rise of cities in Mahajanapadas. We will talk about this when we discuss Mahajanapadas in detail. Basically what happened was, Mahajanapada period was the second phase of urbanization in the Indian subcontinent. The first phase of urbanization was Harappan culture or Harappan civilization. When the cities of Harappan civilization declined, there were no cities until the cities of Mahajanapadas came. So that is why we call the cities of Mahajanapada as the second urban civilization of India. So that was about central India and western Indian Chalcolithic cultures. Now let's talk about eastern Indian Chalcolithic culture and the Chalcolithic cultures in Middle Ganga Plains. Middle Ganga Plains simply means that eastern part of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. In both of these regions, Chalcolithic cultures continued. Because we know that in these regions, Chalcolithic cultures actually started late. We have discussed that Chalcolithic cultures first started in northwestern part of India and in northern India. Then Chalcolithic cultures came into central India and western India. Then from here, they spread into eastern India and southern India. So from this timeline, eastern India and southern India have the Chalcolithic cultures which came very late. So since these Chalcolithic cultures came very late, these Chalcolithic cultures immediately changed into Iron Age. So in the case of eastern India and in the case of Middle Gangetic Plains, there is not much difference in terms of timeline from Chalcolithic culture to Iron Age cultures. In case of Iron Age, people have invented iron plowshare. That is why now these people were practicing full-fledged agriculture. Because without iron plowshare, people could not practice full-fledged agriculture. So this is about eastern India and Middle Gangetic Plains. Now let's talk about southern India. In southern India, we have already discussed that there is not much difference between Neolithic age and Chalcolithic age. That is why these cultures are generally called as Neolithic Chalcolithic cultures of South India. For example, when we discussed Neolithic age, we studied that some sites like Maski, Brahmagiri, Hallur, Nagarjunakonda were the important Neolithic sites of South India. Since there is not much difference between Neolithic age and Chalcolithic age in South India, all these sites can be considered as Chalcolithic sites also. So we do not really differentiate between Neolithic age and Chalcolithic age as far as South India is considered. So this is how Neolithic age changed into Chalcolithic age in South India. Let's talk about how Chalcolithic age changed into Iron Age in South India. In southern India, Chalcolithic culture basically transformed into Megalithic culture. We know that Megalithic culture is nothing but Iron Age culture in South India. The word megalithic is made up of two words, mega and lithic. Mega simply means large and lithic means stone. So basically in megalithic culture, people were building large stone monuments. Usually, in the case of world history, megalithic culture is associated with Neolithic age. But in the case of South India, megalithic culture is associated with Iron Age. Please remember this. So in the case of South India, we can say that Neolithic age, Chalcolithic age and megalithic culture, that is nothing but the Iron Age, were like a continuous process or a continuous transition. But in the case of North India and Northwestern India, this was not the case. Now, let's talk about the limitations of Chalcolithic cultures. Chalcolithic culture was basically a rural culture. This means that Chalcolithic people were living in villages. Moreover, these people were mainly practicing agriculture, hunting and fishing activities. These people were not involved in trade much because trade is mainly a feature of Bronze Age and Iron Age. Trade existed in Chalcolithic age also, but it was not very important feature of Chalcolithic age. Trade is only important feature in urban cultures. But Chalcolithic age was a rural culture. That is why trade was not very important. What was important was agriculture, hunting and fishing. Moreover, the people in the Chalcolithic culture raised animals only for their meat. They did not raise these animals for their milk. So this is also very important because we have observed that in the case of Western Maharashtra, Chalcolithic sites were found in which many children were buried. So this is again an evidence that children were probably not consuming milk. Because we know that scientifically milk is very important part of children's diet. So probably because of low nutrition, there was high child mortality. Another limitation was that the cultivation practices of Chalcolithic people were very poor because these people did not invent iron plowshare. Moreover, in the case of Western India and Central India, these people were living in the region of black cotton soil as well as red soil. In both of these soils, without iron plowshare, agriculture is not easy. That is why the cultivation practices of these people were very poor. This is one reason why these people were more reliant on hunting and fishing than agriculture. Another limitation was that there was high child mortality. The reasons for this were probably lack of nutrition, as we have just discussed. Moreover, absence of medicinal knowledge and widespread epidemics. Epidemics, as we have discussed, for example, cholera and other diseases. Another important limitation was that the limitation of copper as a metal. We know that copper is a soft metal, or we can say copper is a pliant metal. Pliant simply means which is easily bendable. So copper is soft and pliant, or we can say it is not hard like bronze or iron. So for this reason, copper tools have limited usage, whereas bronze tools and iron tools have very diversified usage because the metal itself is very hard. Another limitation was that Chalcolithic people did not invent writing. Writing is very important in the development of any culture. Writing promotes aspects like trade and economy. Since these people did not have an art of writing, they remained as a rural culture and they did not become an urban culture. So this is basically a limitation of Chalcolithic cultures in India. Moreover, Chalcolithic means copper stone age. It is not just copper age. So these people were also mainly reliant on stone tools. That is why these people could not go and live in plains. They had to live near hill slopes and river valleys where it was easy for them to get stone. But in the case of hill slopes and river valleys, agriculture is never easy. Agriculture is very easy in plains. So for this reason also, these people could not practice agriculture on a wide scale because these people were living in hill slopes and river valleys. They were not living in plains. The last limitation that is given here is they did not adopt bronze technology of Harappans. Many of the Chalcolithic cultures like for example Ganeshwar Jodhpura culture, Ahar Banas culture and Kulli culture traded with Harappan people. But in return, they did not adopt bronze technology of Harappans. So we can say that this was a great limitation of Chalcolithic culture people of Ahar Banas culture, Ganeshwar Jodhpura culture and Kulli culture. Whatever you have learnt is very important from the point of view of mains exam. So 8 points have been given here. You can write 10 marks question as well as 15 mark question easily from these points. If you like this video, please subscribe. You can download this presentation from our Telegram channel. The name of the channel is IAS Project. The link for this channel is given in the description section below. Thank you.